Joust was a legendary arcade game that came out in 1982. Over time, it has received countless ports to home consoles and computers. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing those ports with you and telling you what I like about each and every one of them. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this video. From the moment I laid my eyes on the first Joust arcade cabinet, I knew I was going to like this game. It's got a weird premise. You are a knight, you're on an ostrich, and you're taking out other enemy knights by running into them a little bit, hopefully slightly above, and taking out wave after wave of enemies. After you destroy a knight, they turn into an egg. You have to collect the egg before it hatches. Horizontal control is done by moving a joystick left and right, and vertical control is used by the pressing of a button to flap your wings to hopefully gain air superiority against your enemies. Here are some of the earlier ports of Joust that are in my physical game collection. Many of these ports look different, and that's what I want to share today. Back in the day, ports of arcade games looked a little bit different, and I love that about it. Early ports of Joust were done by General Computer Corporation, and I had a lot of experience growing up with Joust on the Atari 2600. Now, it doesn't look great, but it still captures the essence of the arcade game. You still have the 3 different levels of enemies that you have to take out, represented by different colors. It is a 2-player game, and that's what makes Joust a lot of fun. The 8-bit and 5200 version of Joust add detail, making it closer to the arcade version. Everything here is represented, including the evil pterodactyl, which is not impossible to kill, but is very difficult. You have to position yourself just right and joust the pterodactyl in the mouth. And so I really enjoy this version of the game and played it quite a bit back in the day. Joust on the Atari 7800 was the first game I played on the console at a friend's house when I didn't even know what an Atari 7800 was. All I remember is stating how colorful this Atari version of the classic arcade game was. This game port is fantastic. Has everything from the arcade, including the troll hands that try to drag you down and burn you in the lava. While Joust on the ColecoVision was never officially released, it is in prototype form and eventually was finalized and released aftermarket at a Classic Gaming Expo in 2014. If this would have came out back in the day, it would have blown my mind. With large sprites, it would have been one of the best games on the ColecoVision library. As mentioned before, Joust was ported to nearly every classic computer, and the Apple II one is pretty decent. If I was in grade school back in the day and tired of playing Oregon Trail, I would have loved playing this in between class lessons. Now, there were several ports of Joust. This is the IBM PC version. Thank you to Stuart of Stu's Game Reviews. He focuses on classic computer ports of video games, and he did some research for me. There is some debate whether or not this was officially released. There is a ROM of it out there, and as you can see, this is not the best port of the game. Pretty rough. Thankfully, though, over time, PC gamers would get several other versions of this game and a lot better. There was countless clones and wannabes released to ride on the success of Joust, and the ZX Spectrum had a version called Joust originally, and then it was changed to Ostron, released by the game company Softtech. It's pretty close to Joust. It plays a little rough. Thankfully, there's a homebrew version of the arcade game called Roust. It's a lot better. You're probably wondering, where's the C64 version? Well, believe it or not, there wasn't an official release of Joust on the Commodore 64, but thankfully, to GamesThatWeren't.com, they have uncovered and released the prototype version of the Commodore 64 version of Joust. It plays awesome. Go to their website for all the information about how this prototype got uncovered. Overseas, the Famicom received a pretty straightforward port of the arcade classic and it looks and plays great. I actually prefer the Famicom version of this versus the one that we got here in the States, and I'm going to show you in a bit. So here it is, Joust, pretty nice port of the game. Kind of wish we got this version. Instead, we got like an enhanced graphics version of the game, and I don't know. I am not a fan of what they did with it, so I kind of prefer the Famicom version. It looks closer to the arcade. I don't know what they're trying to do with the graphic, but for me, if I had a choice, I would prefer the Famicom version, as it looks to me a little bit cleaner and better. Boy, I wish I knew this port back in the day. Joust on the Atari ST is fantastic. This 1986 port has amazing graphics and gameplay. Everything from the arcade is here. Really was blown away by how impressive this port is. At the same time I was playing the 2600 port, ST owners were playing a near arcade experience. Definitely not to forget about the handheld ports. Joust on the Lynx is fantastic, and this is again another game that I didn't have in my Lynx library. The Lynx version includes 10 levels of difficulty settings as well as Comlinks support, so you can get that two-player action going. Really thought this was a good version, and definitely one I want to revisit and play more. The Game Boy release of Joust, while probably totally fine back in the day, kind of doesn't hold up today. One thing that's annoying about this version is that if you die, you have to restart the wave, and that is really annoying and takes away kind of from the intensity of the arcade game. I know that it's trying to add an additional challenge, but something that I didn't find thrilling or something I want to go back and revisit. Now, Joust on the Game Boy Color, on the other hand, is amazing. Has really, really good gameplay, and while everything's kind of scaled down, they really capture the essence of the arcade game. I really like this version. In fact, I like this version better than the Game Boy Advance version. It just plays really good. I really enjoyed what Digital Eclipse did with this port, and definitely Game Boy Color fans, go back and play this one. Now, the Game Boy Advance one looks way better. I don't know, just the gameplay is a little bit slower compared to the Game Boy Color one. And so, of the three Game Boy releases, I like the Game Boy Color one the most, but the Game Boy Advance one, it looks great. I just don't think the gameplay is as intense as the Game Boy Color version. Yes, they made Joust on the Gamecom, and no, it's not any good. It's an absolute nightmare. It's a blurry mess, hard to play, and insult to injury, you know, after just playing the portable versions of Joust on the Game Boy, it's so bad. I could barely see my character because it's so blurry. Avoid this version. In the mid-90s, Joust was being offered with several other arcade classics, and the Genesis version is really close to the arcade. It's fast, it looks like the arcade, it's just a really good version of it. This is actually the version I played in the 90s, as I was a huge Sega Genesis fan and played several different games on my Sega Genesis as an original owner. Now, the Super Nintendo version is just as good, so whatever version you choose to go with, you are going to be in for a treat, as both these compilations are great 16-bit examples of what they could do back in the day, converting 80s arcade games to 16-bit consoles. Now, as time went on, more and more games were included with compilations, as these are several other versions and compilations that include the arcade game Joust, as well as many other arcade classics. You can't go wrong with any one of these, as many of them include some of my favorites of all time. Also, on the Xbox 360, there was kind of a slightly enhanced version of Joust. This was actually one of my very first digital purchases, and this is a version I still play on my Xbox One. I think it's pretty good. It takes the arcade experience and slightly enhances it with backgrounds and redrawn sprites. So there you have it. That's a lot of different ports of Joust. What was your favorite? Do you like this game? Have you played it? Which version did you play? Comment below, as I would love to hear your stories behind experiencing this game. I had a lot of fun doing this video. If you like what you see, hit that like button and subscribe button and click the bell as I upload videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. This is the immortal John Hancock. Thank you for watching, and you take care.